Hello and good morning on this snowy February morning. I wanted to bring to you a series of videos on financial functions in Excel to sort of supplement the classes we either didn't have because of meetings or snow days or whatever that may be. And I want to start off with the net present value function. But before I do that, I'm going to do a little review of the present value function so you can understand how net present value is used instead of present value. So if you want to follow along with what we're going to do in class today, we're going to go ahead and go to our Canvas page, jump to modules. From modules, we're going to jump down to our financial functions block, which will be right here. And go ahead and grab this update file, this financial functions update file. Now, I've got that file already downloaded, so I'm not going to take the time to do it now. But go ahead and do that. And when you do, let's just start off with a little warm-up problem to remind you of what you already know. So I'm on this PV intro tab here. Okay, we've got two different present value problems that we're going to work on just to warm you up. So what does the present value function do? It can actually do a lot of things to help you in financial analysis. But really one way to look at it is it can tell you what the current value of a future investment would be in today's dollars. So for example, if you wanted to know like, hey, how much money do I need today? Or how much money in today's dollars would I need to invest in order to have a specific value at the end of time? You could actually do that using the present value function. And that's where I want to do this warm up to get started. So the warm up I'm going to do is a fun one, right? So I really love fishing. I love boating. So let's say that 5 years from now, I'm going to retire. Okay, so NPR, a total number of periods of 5 years. I'm going to retire. And when I retire, I would like to buy a boat, like a really expensive boat that costs $175,000. Okay, so in order to do that, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take money that I have right now, and I'm going to turn that over to my financial advisor. And I'm going to say, hey, look, I'm going to give you a lump sum amount of money right now. I'm not going to pay you anything else over time. I'm going to give you money right now. You take that money, you invest it for 5 years. And at the end of 5 years, I'm going to need $175,000 back. Okay. So my financial advisor, great dude, his name's Jamie. You should give him a shout at Raymond James, says, hey, I've got an account. I've got an investment account that you can invest in that'll give you a guaranteed return of 2.5% annually, which is super liberal. That probably wouldn't be realistic, but we'll just say that, right? So what he's going to say is, all right, well, at 2.5%, okay, return annually over a 5-year span, how much money do I need right now in order to turn it into $175,000? So how much money, how big of a check do I need to write my financial advisor right now if he can invest that money and get a guaranteed 2.5% year over year for 5 years in order to have $175,000 in the future, not right now? So how much money do I need right now at this return rate to have $175,000 in the future? The present value function can do that for you. Okay, so you already know how the present value function works. Okay, so with the present value function, the first argument you'll see is rate. Okay, the rate that was given is 2.5%. Now, you got to be careful with these depending on if there's a payment or not a payment. Maybe you have to adjust it to make the given rate the periodic interest rate. But for this particular problem, we're keeping it very simple. We're just putting in a 2.5% return rate, flat, straight up. Okay. The second argument of the PV function is the NPER function, which stands for total number of periods. Now, we're not making any payments, but it's a 5-year span. So we're going to give it D11, which was covered up here, but we've got that anyway. So this is where people sometimes can get confused with the present value function, because sometimes you have a payment amount, sometimes you don't. Now, you'll have to put something in, but it may not be an actual payment value. So what is the payment argument of the future value function? Basically, think of it like your monthly payment or your monthly investment or your annual investment or whatever that may be. In this particular case, it's a lump sum. The lump sum is sort of like a U.S. savings bond, right? When you take out a U.S. savings bond, you get it for whatever amount it would be, say $500, and you can't put more money into it. Once you have it, it's just a $500 savings bond. If you wanted to put more money into a bond, you'd have to buy a second bond. So in this particular case, there actually is no payment, There's just a lump sum opening investment. There is no payment here. So in this particular case, I can either put a 0 here for payment, or I can leave it blank. Now, just to make it easier for people that are starting off, I'll just put a 0 value in. And what that means is I'm not making any kind of periodic investment here. This is a one-time investment. That is it. And what we're looking for is at the end of that one-time investment, a return of $175,000. So notice this optional argument after the PMT argument, which is the periodic payment, is the future value. So what I'm saying is I need to get a future value of $175,000 here. So now when I close that off, and remember type is 0 or 1, which we don't necessarily need here, but that's payment at the beginning or the end of the term. So when I plug this in, what it's going to tell me is, boom, $154,674.50. What does that mean exactly? It means that if I gave my financial advisor $154,674.50 today, and he invested it over a span of 5 years at a 2.5% rate of return, at the end of that 5 years, he would have $175,000 for me. Perfect. Now, this isn't really a present value video, so I don't want to show you future value here, but you could do the same thing in reverse. So I could say, hey, with the future value function, I could say, hey, 2.5% at 5 years at 154,067 or 6,000, or excuse me, 674.50 to start, and it would give me 175,000 that way as well. So we could reverse this with the future value function. But that's not really what this video is about, but that's just a quick warm up of present value. I'll give you one more and then we'll get started. So let me blow this up. So say you are looking to finance a car. And when you finance that car, you're going to finance it at a periodic rate of 2% over a 5-year span. Okay. And you know that you can afford $325. This we know that we can afford. But we don't know, okay, well, if I can afford a monthly payment of $325, what would my annual, or what would be my purchase price? We don't know that yet. That's something else you could do with the present value function. So let me show you that one too. Just as again, this is a warm up because what we're really doing is net present value. But I want you to remember present value. And I've got a full length video that's probably 15-20 minutes solely on present value. So in this particular case, we can do this a couple different ways. We can take present value. We can give it that rate, and I'm just saying it's a periodic rate. So if it were an APR, we would adjust this accordingly. So for example, if this was, an annual percentage rate instead of just 2%. In this particular case, what we would do is we would then go PV. We would take that 2% and divide it by 12, which would give you the periodic interest rate. And say you're looking at monthly payments. So we would take that 5 years and multiply that by 12. And then this is where it gets interesting. So we know the payment this time. So in the previous present value problem we just did, we didn't have a payment amount. It was a 0 payment amount per period. In this particular case, we do have a payment amount. We're looking to make a $325 a month payment. And what we don't know is the future value, and we don't need it. Okay. So what this is going to tell us here in just a second is it's going to tell us that if we have a 2% annual interest rate paid over 5 years and we have a $325 payment, the amount of a car that we could purchase would be $18,542.02. And basically what it's doing is it's sort of reverse engineering this future value concept, right? So it's saying in today's dollars, if I were to pay this over 5 years, it would be $18,542 with this 2% discount rate, which is what we'll call that. Okay. So just a little warm up on present value, because what we really care about is net present value. Okay. So that's what matters. So net present value versus present value. So this is where things get tricky. So let me talk to you about this particular problem. I just cleared some things out, and I'll explain to you what net present value does and why it's so tricky, but why it's really something that you'll use quite a bit. So in the previous problem, for example, that car payment, the payment amount was a steady $325, right? So if I jump back over here, every payment, each payment for all 5 years was going to be the same static $325. Additionally, if we're making monthly payments, we're making monthly payments on the month. So every month for 5 years, exactly. So every 30 days, we're going to make a $325 payment, and it is exactly the same every single time. In that particular case, we could very easily calculate the present value. So the distance or the time between payments is the same, and the payment amount per payment is the same. That's the key here with present value. So let me say it again. The distance between payments, right? So it's every 30 days, is exactly the same for the entire 5 years. And the amount that you're paying every single 30-day period is $325. So in that particular case, same payment amount, same time between payment, present value is great. However, that's not really realistic in the real world. So let me give you this vending machine example. This is my favorite one. So vending machines are interesting. It's an easy way to make money if you can put a vending machine in a high volume place. But you can't necessarily easily predict the amount of money that is going into it. Okay. So every time you go and empty out a vending machine, unless it's 100% empty, meaning it's completely sold out, the amount of money that's in that vending machine, well, we don't necessarily know how much will be in there. Okay. We don't necessarily know that. So in this particular case, what you have every time you empty out that vending machine is you have uneven cash flows between each individual empty, or every time you take money out of it, there's going to be a different amount of cash. And that's different from what we did before, right? So in the previous video, or not the video, but in the previous problem, it was $325 every single time. So see the difference is the cash flow amount. So what I want to show you how to do is how do you calculate present value when you have uneven cash flows? Because the downfall with the present value function is just that. It assumes that you have an even cash flow and an equal distance between each payment of cash flows. Okay. So in this particular case, you've got 5 payments, or you've got 5 income stream / cash flows. So starting with payment 0, going up to 4. Okay. So payment 0 here, you'll notice that's a negative. Well, we're going to call that income stream, or that stream of flow, or a stream of dollars, a negative, because that's your opening investment. You're going to pay $5,000 to buy this vending machine. Okay. We're going to pay $5,000 to buy this vending machine, or we'll just say it's $5,000 in some kind of investment. Okay. So then after that, you'll notice that every month we're taking money out of this vending machine, right? So it's equal distance between payments. However, the amount that we're taking out is different because that's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes vending machines are sold out, sometimes they're not. You could do the same thing with any kind of sales tactic, right? You could go back and do present value stuff with it if they're uneven cash flows. So the key with net present value here is going to be equal distance between payments, okay, but uneven payments. So the first thing we're looking at here is our opening investment is negative because, well, we're going to pay $5,000 to buy this vending machine. We haven't made any money. Then that next payment is $3,000, then $4,000, then $4,500, then $5,000. Okay. So in previous present value video, I introduced the concept of the discount rate, or just the rate that you would use when calculating present value. It really is called a discount rate. I don't want to go too far into it in this video. If you don't know what a discount rate is, go back into that present value, the original present value video, and I'll talk quite a bit about discount rates. Think of it just like a rate of return in some ways, and you saw that in the 2 examples that I gave you. So what I want to do here is I'm going to do the old school math way of figuring out what net present value would be, and then I'm going to show you the really awesome Excel way to do net present value, which is so much easier and a lot less math intensive. So why do we need to use net present value instead of present value? I hope I hit it a few times already, but I'm going to say it one more time. The reason you have to use net present value is when you're working with cash flows that are uneven, but the asterisk is the distance between cash flows needs to be the same. So I'm saying, it's 30 days between each cash flow, but the cash flow that's happening is a different cash flow. So we're taking the net of the present value instead of just the straight present value because of those uneven cash flows. So if you were to do this manually, like old school in business calc, for example, or whatever finance class you guys are in right now, you would use the manual formula of income amount divided by 1 plus whatever your discount rate would be to the power of whatever that payment number would be. So the formula is right there. Okay, so what I'd have to do is I'd have to jump in here and I would have to do this math over and over again. So I would say we'll take our income amount of negative 5,000 and we are going to divide that by 1 plus my discount rate, boom, to the power of whatever term this would be or whatever payment amount this would be. Not payment amount, but payment number. So we'll say 0 here. So we know when we do this, it's going to give me 5,000. Now, I want to fill this down. So if I want to copy this down, what I need to do is absolute reference this discount rate that's up here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that like so. And it gives me 5,000 still, except now I can fill this down. So what's happening is I'm discounting each one of these payments based on distance and this discount rate that's happening up here. Okay, so we're going down, 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 down like so. Okay, so now if I were to add these all up, I get 9,486.04. So that's going to be the net present value of these cash flows. Okay, net present value of these cash flows would be 9,486.04. All right, that's cool. Easy enough. But there's a way easier way to do this using Excel, specifically using that net present value function. So the NPV function is great. It's really easy to remember because it only has 2 arguments, right? Well, it's got 2 arguments with multiple values that you can give it. So it's going to ask you for the discount rate, and then it's going to ask you for the values that it's discounting, and that's it. However, you being that savvy business professional knows that payment 0 or distance 0 isn't going to be discounted based on time, right? Which is why up here we took this to the power of 0 and it just gave us 5,000 back. So this initial investment isn't going to be included in that net present value function. So in order to get this 9,486.04, I'm going to actually start just with the 5,000. Sorry, we don't want to use that one, although it would have come out the same. We want this one. Okay, so we're going to start with that. And then we're going to say plus NPV. Then we're going to feed it the discount rate. And we're going to feed it the other values. Like so. And when I do that, oh, look at that. 9,486.04. 9,486.04. So that is net present value. So now there's something else that's going to happen moving forward. I'm going to make a separate video because this one's getting kind of long. And what I wanted to point out, and I'll just give you a little teaser for it, okay? Which is with net present value, the reason you use net present value is when you have cash flows that happen at equal distance in time, but they're uneven cash flows, okay? Well, what would you do if the cash flows were uneven time distributions, right? So 15 days, then 30 days, then 45 days, then 120 days, right? So the distance between payments are different or they vary and the income stream varies. So in that particular situation, all of a sudden, net present value doesn't work because net present value assumes equal distance between cash flows, okay? So present value assumes equal distance between cash flows and equal cash flow per payment period. Net present value assumes equal distance between cash flows with potentially unequal cash flows. And then there's something called XNPV, okay? And what XNPV will do will give you the ability to calculate the present value assuming uneven distances between cash flows, see date, and uneven cash flows, all right? So that'll be our next video, XNPV. NPV alone is really something that is a great tool. It's a great assessment. It's great as a KPI to help you make decisions. So take a second and practice this up, and I'll give you a little insight. On the test, I'll probably make you do both. I'll probably make you use the NPV function and use the the net present value calculation. So manually discount the values and add them up. All right, friends, I'll see you back here shortly. Once we render this video and post her up, we'll get right back to it.